Welcome to Envisioned Broadcasting, the station designed to encourage, equip, and empower you for growth and success, presents When They Hear Us, an author's movement. A show that provides authors a platform to share their voice with the world. When They Hear Us, with Dr. Tracy Hines Lashley, begins now.
Hello, welcome back to When They Hear Us. I am your host, Dr. Tracy Hines Lashley. I am the CEO and founder of Bossed Up Leaders Incorporated, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And today we have a special guest with us. Her name is Dee Bowden, and she wrote a book called Collect the Cash. You are going to be amazed at what she has and the nugget she's going to drop for us today. So good afternoon, Ms. D.
Well, good afternoon, Dr. Tracy. It's good to see you. It's good to see you.
So tell us a little about yourself.
So I am Dee Bowden. I'm the founder of a company called BCS Solutions. I'm originally from Boston. I now live in the Maryland. I live actually in the Maryland area. I actually live in Maryland. I was about to try to say DMV, but I actually live in Maryland. So fun facts about me. I am a huge Ferris wheel lover. I absolutely love Ferris wheels. I love smooth jazz and absolutely love a good bottle of wine. Red wine? Oh yeah, definitely. We
are so much friends right now. You know, red wine, that's me. Nice.
Yeah, and I love a good Malbec, a good Pinot Noir, a good Merlot, and I love red blends. Man, you give me we get a good red blend and some good seafood and a good salad, baby. That's some good eating right there.
Yes. So what inspired you to write this book?
Well, it's so funny because, before we came live, we were just talking about that. So it's kind of like this. What had happened was.
Sound like my children.
So what had happened was, seriously, I created a vision board last year, and I had a bunch of things I was going to work on my vision board. And I promise y'all, there was no book on the board. Like, if I was to show y'all my vision board, you'd be like, you ain't playing. No, I'm not, for real. I'm not playing. There was no book on the vision board. So what had happened was, one of my buddies, her name is actually Sheree Robin, and she's a Simon & Schuster best-selling author. She'd been talking about how you can write a book in 90 days or less. And I was like, you can write a book in 90 days or less? And her story was so compelling that I was like, So she kept showing up on these lives. And I was like, well, let me go check out her seminar. So I went to her seminar. I was like, you can really do this? And she was like, yeah. And so she asked me, so Dee, what do you do? And I said, I'm a revenue recovery specialist. Translation, that means I collect money for a living for government agencies, corporations, medium-sized companies, and small businesses. And I teach their teams, how do you basically stop leaving money on the table and basically make sure that the sale is complete and the money's in the bank. And she was like, ooh, you can teach small business owners how to win. I'm like, I can? She was like, yeah, you can. Now, I got to tell y'all, I played double dutch with her. If y'all know anything about old school double dutch, I was a double dutch queen. I double dutched with her for a few minutes before I finally said, okay, I'm going to plunk my money down. I'm going to take this course and go through the journey with her. And so for 90 days, I had a class with her every week, and she had me tell my story, and she actually helped me to craft, what is it that I really wanted to do. And it took a minute because I'm a revenue recovery specialist. Basically, in corporate speak, that means I work in accounts receivable. So I'm in collections. I'm in business to business to government collections. I'm thinking, who's going to want to learn about how to collect money? That's for real. That's how it started. And she was like, Dee, you've collected millions of dollars. You have like credentials in doing this. You can teach us how to help us win. And she kept saying that, Dee, teach us how to help us win in our money. And what do we do when we deal with a customer who doesn't pay us, who gives us the runaround? Like, how do we do this? Like, you have a methodology that you've done, like, and you successfully collected millions of dollars. Teach us, Dee. That's what. If I was to play her video, you hear her go, teach us, Dee. Teach us how to win. And so she convinced me to tell my story and to get to work and to do this. And so I literally started on the journey last April, and actually my book comes out next month, which is April 20th. So I literally have been on this journey for a year. So I took my class with her. I got a writing coach after that and worked with her to get the story better. And then I found a publisher. I actually took a class with her. And then we decided, I submitted my information to her, and she finally said, yes, your story is definitely worth publishing, which is Penn Legacy, who's going to publish it next month. And so it's been a journey of not thinking I had anything to say and not thinking that there was a story of it. And so to tell y'all a little bit about, so one of the stories that I talk about often, it was this. So the reason Collect the Cash exists is this. So about 15 years ago, I used to work for a small IT company outside of Boston, where I'm from. So I got hired by the collections department to collect cash. So, they welcome you into the company. Hey, welcome aboard, D. This is your cubicle. Here's your plant. This is where you're going to sit. And then here's your list of accounts. We need you to get to work. So when I got hired, they had $8 million worth of sales on the books, not in the bank. Did y'all hear me? $8 million.
Whoa.
I'm a part-time collector. I work Monday through Friday, 4 to 8. So I get in my little cubicle. I sit down and I'm like, good night. How y'all have $8 million worth of sales on the books, not in the bank? So I'm a believer. So I had a short conversation with God. It kind of went like this. Hey, God. Yes, D. How are you? You know what, God? Overall, I am great. But I got this $8 million problem. And in your word, you said, you have not because you ask not. If you need wisdom, you need to ask me for it. So I need a clue, God, on what I'm supposed to do with collecting $8 million. So I got quiet. And what came up out of that was that business-to-business collections is three things. It's problem solving, number one. It's customer service, number two. And my secret sauce is gratitude. And most people go, gratitude? Who says thank you for getting paid? Well, if you hadn't been paid and somebody paid you, you would say thank you a whole lot because you finally got some money in your bank. So I learned that saying thank you was a very important piece to getting paid. So it was problem solving, customer service, gratitude. So after I get to work, after getting my clues, I get to work, I recover $6 million in 60 days while working part-time. So $8 million on the books, talk to God, I get my clue, I recover $6 million in 60 days while working part-time. On or around October 24th to 5th, the CEO of the company says, listen, we need to have a chat. And I jokingly say, if you have a boo or a booette, or he or she says, we need to talk, you're like, I want to talk to you. I don't want to hear what you got to say. I want to hear nothing. Trust and believe. I want to hear this. So we all come downstairs and he says, listen, I want to thank all y'all for your services. So that's across sales, that's contracts, order entry, invoicing, and my lane, collections, accounts receivable. Appreciate everything y'all have done. We've made an executive decision. We're closing the company and you've got 30 minutes to go collect your stuff. This is 2 months before Christmas. So after I gather myself up off the floor and I'm like, I just collected $6 million of my team. Now we have it was a team of collectors. I collected 6 and we all 100 people lose their jobs 2 months before Christmas. I'm like, how did this happen? And this has been one of those, you know how you have those life-changing moments where something jars you and you're like,
yes,
I don't want to be here again. So I was like, okay, how can I learn about the sales process and then collections? And I basically came up with this quote, which is the sale is not complete until the money is actually in the bank. So I'll say it again. The sale is not complete until the money's in the bank. And so over the course of my career and then launching my business, I kept looking at, what happens when the sale isn't complete? What happens when you neglect the non-sexy part, which is accounts receivable? But I personally believe that sales and collections, they go together. They're like, they date.
Yes, they're married.
They go together. They date. They for real. They date.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, how does that happen? So I started, looking at this and I realized that it's not the sexy part. And I get it, but the sale and collections go together and you can't have one without the other. And watching this company of which I was a part of dissolve, and then watching all the companies that dissolved last year through COVID. And I'm like going, okay, I just have to thank Sheree for pushing me to put my story out here so I can actually give business owners tools and tips on how to collect their money and not mess up the relationship, but more importantly, how to make sure that the sale is complete and the money is actually in the bank. So that's some of the journey of how Collect the Cash got started.
Wow. I'm just sitting here like, man, I remember when I worked at Sally Mae, which I probably shouldn't name drop like that, but this is years ago. My first position there was reject control unit. And I had to go after businesses to pay. And I'm like, man, that was one of the, oof, that is so frustrating. I mean, but at first I was like, yay, I get to find the pennies because he's want me to count it. So when I saw your book, I was like, yes, collect the cash. I want to hear what she has to say about this. But I have also been on the other side of things, as the consumer who's like, you don't always pay your bills. You got to decide if you're going to eat or pay that bill.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to want to eat. So so with a person like me, how I used to be, if someone is having a challenge actually paying, do you help them budget their money? I know you do B2B.
Yeah, I don't do a lot with B2C. That's business. That's business to consumers. That's really not my lane. The thing, like for people that are having challenges with managing their money, I'm gonna make references. So references and referrals. I would tell you to listen to Dave Ramsey and learn his tips on how do you set a budget. Another person that I absolutely follow and admire is Joe Sangle. He has I was broke, now I'm not. And actually, that's his website. I was broke, now I'm not. He actually has a great teaching on how do you set a budget, how do you save for emergencies, how do you plan yourself to get out of debt, how do you invest. Like, so those are my two. And then my other person that I enjoy is David Bach. So it was Dave Ramsey, David Bach, and Joe Sangle are the three people that if you're in debt and you're looking to get teaching on what to do, and they actually give you step-by-step processes, those would be the three. So again, Dave Ramsey, David Bach, and then Joe Sangle. Joe Sangle's is I was broke and now I'm not.
Wow. So who is your book for?
My book, Collect the Cash, is for the small and medium-sized companies that are doing great in sales. Like they've scaled, they're making lots of money. They're either at 50,000, 100,000, $250,000 and beyond. And they're just like, but I don't have time to go collect this money because I've got the next sale. I got the next sale. And it's for them because they need to learn how to track those accounts. Because here's the thing, you can have all those sales, but if you don't have an organized system to tell you how many customers you have, how many sales do you have, how many products have you sold, how much have you invoiced for, when are you supposed to get paid, you can get lost in the thrill of getting the next sale. And that's what happened to the company for me. Like they really didn't track how many sales they had until I got them. Like, so where's the agent report? No, here's your report. So my book is for the business owner that doesn't have a plan and doesn't have a process for collecting their money, or they have scaled and they're like, we don't have time to go collect this money because we're chasing the next sale. But here's the thing, you can get so attracted to the next sale that you neglect the back end, and that's what happens. And so unfortunately, it's one of those things where you don't want to do it, but it's a part of business. It's part of the complete sales cycle. A great example of that is just like anybody who's listening, you have a cell phone. Perfect example. When you bought your phone, whether you're team iPhone or team Android, when you bought your phone, they sold you the phone. That's the first thing that happened. So either they told you, hey, Dr. Tracy, you're eligible for an upgrade, and you take yourself into the store, and you're like, okay, I've got an iPhone 10, I want a 12, or whatever the next number is. Or if you're team Android, you're like up to Samsung, I think it's 20 or 21. Point is, they sold you a phone. So the first piece of business that happens is you have a sale. Second thing that happened is a contract. How do I know that? Because when before you left the store, they scanned your phone. There was a barcode, and they scanned it, and that was part of the contract that started the ball rolling. So they sold you the phone. Then you have a contract. The other piece of that is that they invoice you every single month. That's how I know you have a contract, because it tells you your name, your address, your account number, and whatever phone you bought and whatever plan you're on. That's part of the contract. And then you have a due date of when you have to pay for this. Third thing is that, so the sales, this contract, this order entry. So like I said, they order fulfillment. They scan the back of the phone, which puts your information into the database. Then accounts payable for the company bills you. And then accounts receivable, which is collections, you pay them, or if they got this magic button that would basically turn off your phone if you keep using their service and don't pay for them. That's how it happens. Yeah. That's the sales cycle in a nutshell. So you have sales, contracts, order entry, invoicing, payments, and that's what happens in business. And so my goal with my book is for you to have that complete cycle that I just explained, but most importantly, that when you get to the end, that you don't have that button that turns off your services, that you don't keep you keep providing services or products and you're not getting paid. My goal is that, because when you start your business with a vision and a goal to make a difference. That's why everybody starts a business. You're out with your friends, you have a thought, you might have a drink, whatever. You're like, oh man, I got this idea. And and depending upon who you hang with, they're like, oh yes, that's what's up. That's a good idea. Or, are you crazy? That don't make no sense. It's either one or the other. But the point is, when you start your business, your goal is that you have a plan to make a difference, and then obviously make $1. And so when you launch your business, you want to make sure that your business can actually solve a problem. And so I want to make sure that for those of you who have launched businesses and you're doing well, like you've got lots of sales and you've got lots of product and you've got lots of contracts, that you don't neglect the back end, because it's the part it's not the sexy part, but it's just as important as getting the sale. And that's where my saying comes from: the sale is not complete until the money is actually in the bank. Because you can get so caught up on the adrenaline rush of getting a new sale, of getting a new contract, but you still have to fulfill that contract. You still have to provide the service or the product. You still have to invoice your customer, and you still have to get paid. I want you to celebrate getting paid just as much as you got getting the contract.
Wow. Oh, yes. So do you find that type of service is actually outsourced a lot, or do they hire people in-house for that?
Well, it's both, because you have some companies that outsource it, and you have some people that have them in. So, like, I mean, my experience in my career has been, I have been a person inside of a company or inside of a government agency, where they've brought, so two things: you have people that are hired inside, and it's also outsourced. My services are for companies that may or may not have a team on site, and they say, oh, we need to bring somebody in, or you already have a team on site, but they're just not performing to the best of their ability, and you need somebody who can come in and work with them and help them figure out what are the disconnects. Because it's a lot when you have to solve problems, like, because when you have to figure out, okay, well, I like to say it this way: the what had happened was, and then you got to go figure out the what had happened was. Why didn't we get paid? So was there a mistake on the contract? Was there a mistake on the invoice? Did you order 10 cents of sneakers and you only got 8? Well, I'm not paying you for 10 cents of sneakers when I only got 8. You didn't square up with me, and you won't return my calls. It's all of those things that you do when you're in business, because when you're in business, you're solving a problem, whether it's on the front end, which is sales, or in the contract, or order delivery, or invoicing, or in my lane, collection. How come we didn't get paid? And then relationships are a very key part of this, because you can't solve a problem without talking to somebody. You don't, it's not always going into the computer and looking up information. Sometimes you have to get on the phone and have a conversation. You got to find out, hey, Sue, what's up, D? How are you? Good. Listen, what had happened was, yeah. You already know, girl. I already know. When you start with the what had happened was, you already know. We already know. So what had happened was, and speaking of that, so I joke about that all the time, but seriously, so for the people that are listening, I talk about collections is, the what had happened was in collections, and I talk about something that happened to me recently. So I support a government agency, and so I was closing out contracts. So what I do professionally is I close out contracts, which means I do collections for a government agency. So I was reconciling a contract for this agency, and I reach out to my vendor, and I'm like, hey, Susie, this is D. How are you? Good. How are you? Let's chit chat. A couple of things going on. So I reconcile, and I have a number. And I send them their report, and they're like, D, no, your number is $9,000 short. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, it's $9,000 short. How'd that happen? So she says, well, we reconciled our numbers and we realized that we owed the government money, and we sent a check back to the government, to the U.S. Treasury. You did? So that was what had happened was. That's literally what had happened was. And so I asked her for proof. So she said, here's a copy of the check. Here's when we sent it. And so now here's the piece about when I talk about collections, B2B business, B2B collections is problem solving. When she wrote the check, on the check, it says a memo part.
Yes.
They put the wrong contract number. So the money's been sitting in the suspense account for the better part of a year, because I didn't know it was sitting in there. Nobody else knew it was sitting in there. So when I tell you that business to business and business to government collections is problem solving, there's a lot of times you have to, sit down and basically untangle the puzzle. It's the weeds, it's the pieces to figure out, okay, so if I had not been reconciling that contract, reached out to her, had the conversation, gotten on the phone, asked the question, then asked her to provide the proof, I would have never known that I'm $9,000 short and that they had returned the money, which should have been put back on my contract. I would not have known that. When I talk about problem solving, it's always that, whether it's a contract number that's put on incorrectly, it's 10 sets of sneakers that were ordered and they only got 8 and you didn't square up and you need to pay for the other 2. It's the invoice has, the information on the invoice is incorrect. They've changed billing systems. They used to use Microsoft Excel. Now they use QuickBooks or whatever system. It's all of those things. And then you still have to add in the building the relationships, the problem solving, do customer service. And like I said, my secret sauce is gratitude. People are like, what are you so big about gratitude? Well, I've learned over the course of my career and now building a business that when you go back and tell people thank you for helping you solve a problem, you build rapport. And because I deal with lots of companies and lots of agencies and lots of people, going back and saying thank you for the people who take my phone call, who research my problem, who actually get the check, cut or ready to be issued to me, or whoever I'm working with, when they help me get that done, going back and saying thank you for them taking that time to do what they didn't have to do, but they chose to do it, is important. And the next time I have an issue, it's so much easier to get things done because I've already expressed my gratitude for them helping me. And I've had somebody come back to me and say, D, people very rarely come back and say thank you. And when I learned that lesson, Dr. Tracy, I was like, okay, that's gonna be part of my secret sauce. It's gonna be problem solving, customer service, and absolutely expressing gratitude.
Wow, you have said a lot right now. First of all, that gratitude is very important. A simple thank you can just go, it makes a big difference. And you also mentioned something about communication. All I heard in there, I'm a DISC consultant and emotional intelligence. So I'm just like, oh my goodness, you're speaking my language right now. So I can just imagine that conversation going a different way. If you were not, conscious of how you were talking to her or speaking to this individual, and they wouldn't have embraced you like they did because you don't have a relationship, I can see it just like being like a different experience. I'll say that. That's fair. Say it nicely. But
oh yeah.
So do you recommend like getting some type of a training for communication for people in this role?
Oh, absolutely. I believe you are constantly, I believe you constantly have to, get training. It's kind of like, I feel like I'll put it like this. I went to school, got a couple of degrees, and I'm grateful for those opportunities. And I remember when I was finishing up my graduate work, my professor said, "You're going to be a lifelong learner." Didn't even know what that meant. I'm like, what? I was like, boy, look here, I can't wait to move this tassel one time, and I'm good. I'm about to get up out of here. No, you're going to be a lifelong learner. And I didn't get that a few years back. I really didn't understand that, but I do believe that, once you start putting yourself in these spaces where you're engaged, with like-minded people, and you have these conversations, and then you get to see a different viewpoint or something you're like, ooh, I didn't know about that. And then something comes alive on the inside, and you're like, I want more of that. So, now, yeah, am I a lifelong learner? Absolutely. I'm always in some kind of course now. But to your point, so I believe you need to take courses on communication. Absolutely. I believe you need to take courses on communication. I believe you need to have opportunities to practice and talk. And I believe you need to have people, safe spaces where you can, iron out how you say things. Because sometimes you can say something and it can be misinterpreted, and you didn't mean anything by it. It's just the way you deliver. But sometimes you have to get feedback. So because most of the people that we admire, all of them have a coach or a mentor or both.
Yes.
And they'll tell you, I wouldn't say it like that. I would say it like this. Or when you went out and said it anyway, they're like, come here. Let me talk to you. Let's take a walk. Let me talk to you. Let me talk to you. I know that's not what you really meant to say, but the way it came across, and that part. And being able to get the constructive criticism to help you get better is how you grow. And sometimes it takes you a couple of walks around the block before you go, oh yeah, I see it. Because sometimes you just don't see it. What I'm describing to you today has been a over 20-year journey. I didn't start out like this. When I first started like this, I was like, I'm going after the money. And then I was like, ooh, that's not working. And so I was blessed to be mentored by a couple of people who said, okay, this is how you do it in this environment. You need to learn how to say it this way. You have to make sure you follow up with details. You got to make sure you do this and that. And then, like I said, when I learned that to come back and say thank you, I was like, okay, note to self, make sure that you say thank you. Because here's the thing, even right now, I talk about this often. We just came out of the holiday season. If you got a holiday card, a Christmas card, or a season's greeting card from your favorite customer, they wrote you, "Dear Dr. Tracy and family, we are so happy that you're our customer for this year. We wish you happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all the happy stuff, all the seasons things." And then they said, "Thank you for being our customer, or thank you for your service, and we look forward to serving you in 2021." What were they doing? Customer service. They're expressing gratitude for you being their customer. They want you to become. They want to make sure they are top of mind for you when you need their service, their product, or whatever. Well, in the same vein, somebody had to teach them how to do that.
Yes, that's true. And and that's even important when you're dealing with banks, because we're talking about cash here. When you have a relationship with I would even say a bank teller, with the loan officer, the finance person, things can go a different way. And one thing that is so funny, because I remember like about 20 years ago, I was just that person that was like, I was a D, a very strong D, where I would say what I wanted and be done with it and keep going. Didn't care about the feelings. I would say I cared a little bit, but I was like, whatever. I don't need to talk to people. I don't need to build no relationship with people. I just need to do my work and go. I used to go in that bank and leave. But I learned later on that no, because when you build rapport with people, you build a connection, you have a relationship, it goes even farther. You might have got an approval quicker than you did when you just like, okay, well, whatever. Just like, I don't want to have a relationship with y'all. You're not going to know my name. You know my face like I'm up here.
Yeah. It's the journey. I mean, you asked me about, how did the book come about? So for the people who may or may not know, so one of the great opportunities I had was Dr. Cheryl Wood actually had me on her radio show a couple of years ago. And so she's actually part of the reason why that Collect the Cash is happening, is because I met her a couple of years ago and I was a guest on her radio show. And she says, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I recover money." And she's like, "I never had don't know anybody that does that." She's like, you're in debt collection. I'm like, well, not the way you think about it, because when people hear the word debt collection, they think the IRS or the car repossession or the people getting their phones cut up. I'm like, no. I'm on the corporate side. I'm on business to business, business to government, business to corporations. And so I got to tell my story on her radio show. And she was like, I'm impressed. I like your story. I like what you're doing. And so fast forward a few months later, she was doing this book project called Entrepreneur Elevation. So that we were talking earlier about how we're connected.
Oh, yes.
And so she did Entrepreneur Elevation, and she's like, I need you to come in. I need you to tell your story about collecting money, and then your system, like how you teach business owners to track their accounts and what to do when they run into trouble, and she talked to me about that, and she was like, no, this is a perfect story for this book. And so she actually was part of how the journey to collect the cash happens. And so, shout out to Dr. Cheryl Wood for giving me my shot a couple of years ago and putting me on her radio show, and then, having me be a part of the book. And then, it's just been a journey. And then I'm realizing that I love what I do. I have fun what I do. And when people hear my story, they're like, I've never met anybody who collects money who actually likes doing this. Most people can't stand it. I said, I know, but I decided years ago that if I was going to do this, I was going to have fun. I was going to have fun. I'm gonna have a good time. Like, so like you all can't see these, but I have these clappers. I have these little gadgets. So when I get a little bit of money, matter of fact, let's show y'all. So I have one that's this size when I collect this much money. I got one when I do this. I got this
Oh,
one,
wow.
baby. When this, let me show y'all. Let me y'all show you like the mega one. So listen, when I collect the millions of dollars, I got this, baby. So I listen, as I said, I like to have fun. But I decided that regardless, and here's the thing: I use this as a prop, but it's also to teach business owners. Celebrate your wins, whether it's a $5 win, a $500 win, or a $5,000 win or beyond. You got to learn to celebrate along the way, because that's part of how you grow. Because you can't be ruler over much until you're ruler over little. If you don't learn to celebrate your small wins, you don't get to celebrate the big wins. The millions of dollars that I've collected, like for example, I've collected $7.5 million for the United States Coast Guard headquarters in 1 year. That's like that thing I just showed, the mega, that's mega. Wow. But I didn't get to start off collecting $7.5 million. I learned how to collect $7 and then $10 and then $500 and on and on and on. So I've been collecting money and teaching people how to do this for a long time. So those props were lessons to say, listen, celebrate your wins. Just like me having, now I get to show off, y'all get to see collect the cash. So me doing to collect the cash. This is a journey. This has been over a 20-year journey of me collecting money, learning principles, learning problem solving and customer service and gratitude, and then building relationships and making mistakes, and then how about this, y'all? Getting fired for somebody telling me I didn't know how to collect money. What?
Wow.
Yeah, that part. Yeah.
Wow.
And you know what? And that was a lesson too, because even getting fired from a job, but from the person who said that you don't know how to do this, and then me going on and having a successful career and being recognized by the United States Coast Guard headquarters, being recognized and being featured in Forbes magazine. I know that person who saw the article was like, I fired her. Yeah, and look at what God did instead. He took my pain. He took those ashes and made something beautiful out of it. So thank you actually for doing that.
Wow.
Much more.
Yes, okay. You know what? Being underestimated is something that Black women go through a lot, or women, period. It's like, well, you can't do this. There's no way you be able to do this. Or they see you there and like, I'm going to find a reason to get rid of her. So during your journey, have you ever been discriminated against, or felt like you have, or felt like people didn't want you there? And how did you deal with that?
What a question. So, yes, I have. How did I deal with it? Years ago, I worked for an engineering company, and yeah, I went through a lot with a former boss. I remember lots of upset days. And the good thing was, even back then, I had two mentors. I guess I was that kid that older people liked me, because I guess I was always curious and I always wanted to learn stuff, and I was excited then as I am today. So there was one lady who was a vice president at her company, and so she said, I'm gonna mentor you. So I used to commute back and forth to the job, and so on our bus ride home, I would tell her about the stuff that was going on that just get me so frustrated. And she was like, okay, you got it all out. Okay, let me show you why this is happening and what you need to do, because I didn't have a strategy. And so she taught me the importance of having a strategy. So when this comes up, instead of responding like this, you need to be able to do something different. And then there was a gentleman that was a banker that took a liking to me as well, and he was like, okay, I'm going to help you on this side. He said, so he gave me a couple of pointers. He wasn't as extensive as my female mentor was, but he was like, okay, let me give you a couple of pointers, give you this. And he goes, you got to get stronger. You got to get stronger. I'm like, I don't understand. He's like, just listen to me. You got to get stronger. And so over time, between being mentored by them and then me being a person of faith, and then deciding I'm not gonna lose this. I'm just not.
Wow.
And so eventually, I spent a year under this gentleman and had to learn how to do contracts because I wanted to be a contract administrator.
Mm-hmm.
And so after being mentored by them, and I realized like that was a stepping stone for me, because in order for me to be able to handle the multi-million-dollar contracts that I was going to manage, I needed that lesson. I didn't see it then. I can see it today. When I was in it, I was like, this is crazy. But I'm just real talk. I mean, because when I was going through it, I'm like, this is nuts. But I realized that I was getting prepared. I was being prepared because I was a junior contract administrator under him and under his tutelage, and it was tough. But I didn't realize that while I was going through all that, I was being prepared to be the contract administrator for a construction division inside this company, and they were building a water filtration plant. And if I had not gone through all of that, I would have not been ready to withstand all the other stuff that was coming as the main contract administrator for this project, who was going to have to deal with city officials and all kinds of stuff. And it was more stuff. So that little bit that I went through, yes, it was painful and it was hard for a good while. But when I finally got the lesson, I was able to go back and say thank you. It took me a while to go back and say thank you, but it wasn't right away. It was not right away. But I learned, and that's part of what the lessons are. Sometimes sometimes you don't always get it. You don't always get the lesson when you're in it. Sometimes it's in hindsight when you get on the other side of it. You're like, oh, that's why I had to go through that. I had to be prepared for this, and that's what I came away with. But yeah, have I been a script?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's funny because when you were talking about that, all I think about, I don't know why it just came on mind, is like Karate Kid. Remember we had washed the vehicles, and then he was like, why do you have to wash it? And it had been a circular motion, and why are you making me do this? This is stupid. This is crazy. It's like we go through things in life. It's like, okay, wow, why do I have to go through this? Like scrubbing a toilet, clean the floor with a toothbrush. You know what I'm saying? It's like you have to prepare yourself for bigger and better. Because like you said before, if you don't appreciate the small things, you won't appreciate the bigger ones.
No, and you don't get elevated to do bigger. Mm. It's kind of like it's these. It's
small wins and
then it's and then it's
like people like ready to get that $1 million check. I'm like, no, get $1 first.
Yeah, that part. Yeah, but that's the journey. It's that. And when I look back on it now, that's been over, good grief, that's been over 25 years ago when I went through that. Wow. And it was not easy. There were many days I was just like, this is crazy. But then eventually, between my mentors and then being a person of faith, and then me just deciding I'm not losing. I'm just not losing. I'm just not gonna lose. I'm just not gonna lose. And then when I made that decision that I wasn't gonna lose, something just kicked up, something kicked inside of me, and I'm like, okay. And then I kept, my mentors kept working with me to teach me how to maneuver, in this space. And I'm like, okay. I said, and then when they told me that I was going to be promoted, I was like, okay. And it took a while. Because I had to learn some things. You have to learn discipline. You got to learn this, perseverance. You got to learn to realize it ain't personal. This is just business. It's like a business of a different way. I'm like, what? Man, I was a Black woman that was, going to be promoted to be the contract administrator in a predominantly, matter of fact, an all-white team.
Yeah.
And I had a vice president that was white, and all of that, and had no idea that all of that stuff was to prepare me to be their administrator, and to be able to stand up to the engineers and to the architects and to like I said, we were building a water filtration plant to deal with the city, the chief engineer for the city of Rochester, New York, and deal with him and all that. But all of that training was to get myself ready to be promoted and to be able to handle this project, and that to make sure that this project could be managed, invoices, payments, engineers, the city, all of it, and now they're still, you know. And then when they cut the ribbon for the whatever from Christmas, I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. I did that part.
Wow.
I managed this part. Right. I made sure that thing happened and untangled hundreds of thousands of dollars of invoices that had been messed up for months because the previous administrator just couldn't handle it. And then the chief engineer was like, y'all, we're not paying you another dime till y'all get this straight. And so I had to get on the phone, talk to this gentleman, phone's over here, because he had a whole lot of choice words to say. I'm like, okay, sir, thank you. And on behalf of the company, I'm sorry for all the mistakes that were made, but I'm the new administrator here, and this is my project, and I need to build a relationship with you. And obviously, we have failed you. And in order to course correct this, I need 30 days to untangle the hundreds of thousands of dollars of invoices that are wrong. And I also need your process. How do you want these invoices submitted to you? I need you to send me an email, because I'm going to present it to my vice president and show him exactly what you want. And I will be dedicated to making sure this doesn't happen again.
Wow.
And when I did that, he was like, are you serious? Yes, sir. But when we get this course corrected, we won't be here again. That was another lesson. Diligence, perseverance, decide,
wow,
not losing. And yeah, took a while.
Hey, you dropping some nuggets, like Dr. Sharon Wood was like, juicy nuggets. Juicy. Wow. Yeah. And the first book that I was a part of with her was Courageous Enough to Launch. And this is a book full of entrepreneurs. And me, I was fairly new. And it's scary to launch a business. So you're talking about, the sale isn't complete until the money's in the bank. That's kind of scary as well. So what would you tell entrepreneurs? What is a tip that you can give them to make sure they get that bag?
First tip, number one, make sure your business is set up legally.
Ooh.
Yeah, that part. You asked, Dr. Tracy, so we're going there. So, step one, please establish a business legally. That means having articles of organization. So you are registered to do business in your state. Number two, get yourself an employer identification number, also known as an EIN, which is basically the social security number for your business, like you have your social security number for yourself. Number three, establish a business checking account. So articles of organization, actually the name of your business, where you're going to do business. Most of us, when we start a business, we started out of our home, but you're registering your business to be legal in the state. Number two, an employer identification number, which is basically the social security number for your business. And then number three, your business checking account, whether you are banking with Bank of America, Wells Fargo, your local credit union. If you have an account with them, you can ask to establish a business checking account. That way you can actually keep your business expenses separate from personal. Even when we start our businesses, most of us, when we start our businesses, it's your side hustle or not, you started off with your own personal money, and that's fine. But eventually, once you you might you have to open your business checking account with your own personal money. It'll be $100 to get started. But the point is that once you get started, is to continue to keep your business expenses separate from personal and stop commingling your funds. Those would be the tips I tell you.
Wow. Yeah. That was a mistake I made, the commingling.
We all have done it. But it's the reason I talk about it is because when and if you get audited by the IRS, to have to explain what had happened was, you don't want to have to do this. If you learn to track everything from the beginning properly, and if you work with an accountant that will work with you to teach you how to do this, and you stop commingling funds, the audit is just not worth it. And because I deal with government contracts, I mean, I know that auditing, when somebody comes in to audit, they're pulling back the curtain. They want to see everything that's happened. If you don't have good records and you have to keep explaining what had happened was, and what had happened was, and don't nobody want to hear all that. If you learn to do it right from the beginning, you just save yourself a lot of time, a lot of hassle.
Wow. Yeah, I know a lot of people are like, well, I have to still eat, so why not use the same account? and you have to probably pay yourself.
In the beginning of your business, you might not be paying yourself. I mean, because the other thing is that a lot of people that are starting businesses, self included. I mean, I have a career and I'm building my business alongside, because I would tell a lot of people, I get that you want to jump out here and be a full-time entrepreneur, but if you don't know anything about sales or marketing or operations or finance or how to track books or how to sell or how to do this, I don't recommend that you jump out here full and go into your business 100% full time without having any plans, any savings, any teaching, any experience. It's just not. You are better served to have your career, if you still have one, and then build your business on a part-time basis so that you learn these things, because in these internet streets, you see everybody on social media, oh my gosh, you just sit and do the laptop luxury lifestyle. No. You got to know how to sell. You have to know how to market. You have to know how to pitch yourself. You have to actually know how to organize your business. If you're not really strong in selling, that means you need to find somebody who knows how to sell. If you don't know how to marketing, you need to find somebody. If you can't market, you got to find somebody who can do marketing. If you don't have to do operations, who's going to do that part? If your business requires a license, who's going to go get the license? Are you getting the license, or are you having somebody else do it? Getting business insurance is a whole bunch of things, and there's more things to learn. Like as you get started, you might get the basics, those 3 things I said, but then you've got to learn all the other pieces. And if you have a full-time job, your full-time job is your investor into the business. You can start by having your bit, continue, honor your day job and do your day job, and then when you're off, you work on your business. You can, if you want to talk about some savings of funds, you can take the 52-week savings challenge as a way to start saving up money to invest in your business. So the 52-week savings challenge allows you to, I think, if you do just the basics, it gives you like $1,300 to $1,500, which you can save up over the course of a year. And that's money that you can use to start seeding into your business. Meaning, so if you, like, for example, if you want to get the articles organization, you have to pay for that. Your EIN number is free. Your business checking account, you're at a minimum is $100. If you decide you need to be licensed, you got to pay for your license. You might need business insurance. You decide, I need a logo. I need a website. I need things. Well, you need, until you start making money in the business, you're going to be funding the business. But the point is that you want to plan for these expenses, and then, like I said, you put them in the separate account and tracking. Okay, I spent money on this, and this, and here's my receipts. So when you get to the end of the year, you can bring them to your accountant and say, okay, here's what I did. I didn't make any money, but I have great records to show you this is what I did in my business, and I can account for every dime that I spent. It was spent on these things.
Wow. You know what? I know you probably didn't expect to come in school some of those entrepreneurs, but you are really, man, you're amazing.
Thank you.
Wow. If you guys missed the beginning of this or any part, you need to catch the replay, because I'm telling you, the nuggets that were dropped tonight, oh, wow. You need to have a notebook ready, pen, paper, something. Right on the back of the envelope.
What they need to do is get the book. They need to get the book.
There you go. How about you tell them where they can find the book and how they can get in touch with you?
Sure thing. But first of all, I'll tell you, Dr. Tracy, thank you so very much. I'm so glad for the EE Squad and Dr. Cheryl for our great connection. So listen, y'all, Collect the Cash. It actually comes out officially April 20th, 2021, which is next month. So we're like 30 days out. But right now, you can get a signed pre-sale copy from yours truly. Go to www.collectthecash.biz/book. That's www.collectthecash.biz/book. And for every person who buys it directly from me, you actually get a signed copy, and you're going to get a personalized bookmark.
Ooh, a bookmark.
Yes, you get a bookmark. Yep, you get a bookmark. You're getting a signed copy and the bookmark, and I'm super excited about this. This is my first. I've been a part of 2 anthologies. One, obviously, with Dr. Cheryl Wood, and then there was Cheryl Plotte Williamson. I was in Soulful Prayers Volume 2, where I wrote a prayer about forgiveness. But to decide to tell my own story, and to be encouraged to step out and do this, it's not easy. I mean, I don't know, for most people when people say that you wrote a book, it's like, yeah, but here's the thing, what people don't understand is that when people decide to write the book, you're taking your knowledge, skills, and abilities, and you're saying, what I have to say is important. It's no different if you go into Barnes and Nobles in whatever section you go into. If you go into the food section, you go into business. Everybody who wrote a book, they have their process, their thoughts, their philosophy on what worked for them, and they've decided that they want to give you what worked for them. Well, what Collect the Cash is what worked for me. I applied my faith, and I discovered that collections is problem solving, customer service, and my secret sauce is gratitude. And then I teach you about tracking your accounts, and these are the things that I've learned successfully in my career and in my business. And it's allowed me to be, like I said earlier, to be recognized by the United States Coast Guard headquarters. It's had me featured in Forbes magazine. So Forbes magazine, which is like the top business magazine in the world, talks about yours truly being a cash collector and what I do in collections. I thought, okay, God, this is pretty cool. I'm gonna take this. Thank you.
You are the collection queen.
Yep.
Well, it was amazing having you on the show, and I thank you for reaching out and like saying yes, you want to be on the show. So you guys, don't forget, get the book, Collect the Cash. Remember, sale is not complete until the money is in the bank. Absolutely. And always remember those 3 key points: problem solving, customer service, and gratitude. Y'all, look out, because she is on the rise, man. She might be opening up a bank. Who knows? So you have been listening to When They Hear Us. I'm Dr. Tracy Lashley. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to When They Hear Us, where Dr. Tracy Hines Lashley and her guests provide stories and experiences. This is also a platform for authors to encourage, empower, and equip people around the world with their voice. To learn more about Dr. Lashley and her quest to share the voice of powerful writers, go to her website at drtracylashley.info. You may also contact her by sending an email to info@drtracylashley.com. Remember to always intentionally walk in your purpose and strive to elevate to significance.